What's up guys, it's Alex the Magician here, back for another video, and in this video I want to talk about taking hives. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do kind of like a general strategy overview for taking hives with each faction in the early game. And a quick disclaimer before I get into this video is I am recording this on my new PC setup, so my audio settings may not be perfect just yet, so excuse me if the audio is a little too quiet or something like that. Hopefully I'll figure this out in the next couple of videos. And one quick announcement that I wanted to make before starting the actual video, I've created a Facebook page for the streams and the channel, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could go there and drop me a like and a follow in the Facebook group. I'll have the link in the video description below. And there actually is something in it for you guys as well. I'm gonna actually start doing giveaways in the near future, and the first giveaways that I do, you would need to be following the Facebook page to be eligible for it. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and drop me a follow on the Facebook page. Alright, now let's get into the actual video. So, taking hives. It's definitely a little bit tricky with some factions. Some factions are a lot easier. So for example, when we're doing it with Dungeon, also with Fortress, and also with Necro, you can take a size 3 hive on just your day 1 army. You just gotta, make sure that you do it right, and you gotta make sure that you don't lose too much when you're actually fighting the guards to the hive. So you want to avoid anything that is difficult to fight, like ranged guards or difficult guards where you lose a lot of your power stack, because you do want to have, if the hive is a size 3, you do want to have as many units as possible and as much meat as possible to actually take that hive. So when you're going for hives, it's always a bit of a judgment call whether or not it's actually worth it to lose a lot of your power stack, a lot of your level 1 or whatever units you actually have as your power stack to take the hive, right? Because that is what's going to happen. If you are facing a big hive, size 3, size 2, no matter how you spin it, you're going to be losing, if we're dungeon, we're going to be losing troglodytes, no matter what. So you got to kind of make the judgment call on whether it's worth it to trade away your troglodytes for hives. So how I usually do that is if I see a decent amount of hives on the map, and I know that I can start snowballing my wyvern stack, then I can kind of start trading away my troglodytes for wyvern, and my wyvern then becomes the power stack, right? With Necro, for example, it's a bit more tricky because a lot of times you don't necessarily want to trade away your skeletons for wyvern. And, that is what's going to happen in the hives, no matter what. So you may not want to do hives as Necro because a lot of times you want to go for the skeleton snowball strategy, and you don't really want to trade away your skeletons for wyvern, again, unless you have a lot of hives and it's viable to actually make the wyvern your power stack rather than your skeletons. So, just make sure you kind of, are aware of that and make that judgment call before you even go into the hives, before you even go for hives. Whether it's actually worth it, whether you actually have enough to make that your power stack, and, then start taking conses with that, or maybe just snowball the wyvern, take more hives, and, do the break on wyvern, maybe taking pickets, whatever it may be. Just make sure you have enough to make trading away your level 1 unit power stack worth it. And with Dungeon, a lot of times it is. A lot of times it's worth it, and what I do generally with Dungeon, also Fortress, Fortress is kind of similar to Dungeon, where both of them can take a size 3 hive on your day 1 army, And a lot of times it may be a good idea to go into the hive on day one and see if you can actually take it. And if you can't, you know, especially if you have restarts left, if you can't take the hive, then you can just take a restart, right? So a lot of times it's kind of like one of those things where, you know, let's say here, I find a big size hive, right? So this could be a size 3 or 4. Size 4 hive, I will die in. There's no way for me to take a size 4 hive with my day 1 army, right? So what I want to do, if I don't have any restarts left, I definitely want to check the size of the hive. I want to sacrifice a hero to actually check the size of the hive. That's definitely something you want to do, unless you actually have restarts and you don't want to sacrifice a hero, and you can just go, okay, so I go into this hive. If it's a size 3, I take it and then I continue. I don't take a restart. If it's a size 4, you know, I die and I just take a restart, right? So again, you know, just keep all those things in mind before you go into a hive. Now, as far as preparation goes for taking a hive, right? So before taking your hive, you want to, you know, give yourself the best chance possible, and you want to get as much stuff as possible to minimize the losses of your power stack, right? So what that means, first of all, you want to be doing the hives on a good might hero, right? So Shakti is good, Beastmasters are good because they can tank. Generally, for hives, what you need are tanky units. So for that reason, Inferno is not that good at taking hives, because even if you start with Ignatus, imps can't tank anything. And Stronghold is also not that great because, again, even if you start as Gretchen, the gremlins, or I mean the goblins, sorry, they can't really tank a whole lot. So something like troglodytes, gnolls, even skeletons on a decent might hero, that's what you're kind of looking for. Now, at the same time, if you happen to have artifacts on the road like this, for example, like this Ring of Vitality, that's actually a big help because that gives a +1 HP to your troglodytes, right? So that's actually gonna make them that, like, what, 15% more tanky. And an artifact like this is going to help as well, the Still Eye of the Dragon, plus luck and plus morale. So just keep a lookout for that. And if you can level Shakti, if you can pick up some, you know, treasure chests or something like that before going into the hive, you can do that as well. All of those things are just going to help you lose less. And the last thing that I'm going to mention is obviously taking as much stuff as possible, and you want to take as much tanky stuff as possible. So here, for example, I had a conflux hero in the tavern, right? And I'm actually not bringing the pixies because pixies only have their health is only 3, right? So I'm just bringing them as 1 stacks, but I am taking all of my harpies because they have 14 HP. I am bringing the beholders and I am bringing the fish because all of these things can tank quite a few hits, right? And that's what we want. We want them to tank as much damage as possible so that the dragonflies don't go for the troglodytes. Now, if I brought the pixies, if I brought all of them, that would basically maybe tank 1 extra hit, so I actually think it's more worth it to keep them as 1 stacks for the future, and as, you know, 1 stacks for my scout heroes, you know, as opposed to the harpies that I normally do that with. So just keep that in mind. You do want to keep some 1 stacks. You don't want to sacrifice all of your 1 stacks. Like, if you don't have any faster units, you know, if you don't have units like pixies as dungeon, I would keep some harpies in the town. I wouldn't sacrifice all of the harpies, but in this case, since I do have the pixies, I am gonna go like this. I'm gonna take all of my harpies, all of the troglodytes, upgrade the troglodytes, and everything else that I can, and just 1 stacks of pixies. Alright. And in this case, I'm not actually going to level Shakti, you know, just to show you guys that this can be done without even leveling and without getting any additional artifacts. But certainly this would have helped, and picking up these 2 chests would have helped as well. So let's go. Alright, see, so even auto combat is actually able to do it. It is a size 3, but you see we do lose 76 troglodytes. So that's losing a lot of troglodytes, right? So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to fight a little bit better. You do also want to try to fight more optimally, or as optimally as possible in these hives as well. Okay. So the way that you want to take these is you don't really want to attack with any of your other units. You want to either def or you want to cover kind of your troglodytes so that you can actually tank as many hits as possible. Now, you do also want to take retail with your one stacks. So what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to take retail from this stack. Then I'm going to put the troglodytes here, attack from this hex. Then I'll put the fish over here and attack from this hex. That way they actually cover the troglodytes from these two hexes. And I'll just put the harpies probably here, you know, to just cover. Actually, I'll probably attack with the harpies as well from this stack, just in case I don't actually one-shot this 12 stack. So let's go. All right, and the rest of my one stacks are just gonna. This one is gonna be over here, and this one will cover from this direction. Okay, so you see I didn't finish. Now we're gonna attack with the harpies without returning, so that the harpy can occupy this stack. And then the fish, we actually should kill this stack, right? Yeah. And now I'm gonna cover the troglodytes from another direction, and see, this way the troglodytes are actually as covered as possible, so they should not get attacked. Even if they do aggro on the troglodytes, they shouldn't get attacked by more than one, maybe two stacks. And also, the reason that I did that, you want to not get weakness on your power stack, right? So that's why you usually, unless you are sure that you can just one-shot the stack, you want to try to take retail with your other stacks, preferably one stacks, before you actually hit with your power stack. Okay, see, so they are not attacking the troglodytes. And now let's go and take out this stack. Actually, the fish already... No, I'm not going to attack with the fish. Well, yeah, so I will take retail from this 12 stack over here. This stack might as well attack also, do one more damage. And then... Okay, good. We actually one-shot. And now, I'm actually going to def with the fish. This way, because if I attack, I don't do that much damage. And I tank fewer hits. So I'll just def, which gives me more defense, and it will allow me to tank a little bit more so that the troglodytes actually don't suffer as much. So see, it tanked 3 hits. Now... Okay, now I may actually not take retail. This is a little bit of a risk. I'm gonna just try to one-shot, I think, this 11 stack with the troglodytes, so that I can tank one more hit with this one stack. Now, this is a bit of a risk. I could not one-shot them, and I could get weakness, but I'll try it anyway. In this case, it's, you know, if I wanted to play it safe, I would take retail from the 12 stack, probably, and attack the 12 stack with the troglodytes and the fish. But in this case, I'm gonna hope that my troglodytes just one-shot this stack and yeah, try to hit them without taking retail. Okay, we did one-shot them. And again, we're just gonna def with the fish. So in this case, they do attack the troglodytes. Alright, well, now we are gonna take retail. Okay, we'll see. Even like that, even though we got attacked at the end there with 2 dragonflies, which, you know, I was hoping they would continue attacking the fish, we still did way better than auto combat. We saved a lot of troglodytes. The auto combat only had 39 left. We actually have 102 left, which is great. We have 102 troglodytes left and 8 wyvern. So now we can even take a maxi hive with that. So again, if we have any additional hives and we can snowball, this is really good. This is a really good start for dungeon, doing something like that on day 1. So that's what you can do with dungeon. All right, now let's move on to Necro. Alright, so Necro, as I've mentioned before, it's tricky because you would be trading away your skeletons, right? So you gotta make the judgment call. With other factions, like with Dungeon, for example, or with Fortress, you pretty much are expecting to trade away your troglodytes or your nulls for Wyvern, right? Or for something else. With Necro, a lot of times you're expecting to snowball your skeletons, so you're not expecting to actually trade away your skeletons. So this is not necessarily something that I will do often. Actually, a lot of times I personally ignore hives when I am Necro, but in some cases it may be viable. If you find a lot of hives, like on this map for example, this was the starting position, and there are a few hives, so you know, we can already see 3 of them along the road, a 4th one over here, so it potentially is viable to actually trade away our skeletons for Wyvern. But again, you know, then you gotta kind of make that judgment call, because yeah, we have a gold dragon's break. You gotta find out what your break is. If you really need animate for the break, you know, it's more reliable as Necro to snowball your skeletons and to break with animate. Usually you can break on 1-2-1 with full moves, unless you get unlucky and you can't roll animate, you know, on your first, second, or maybe even third try. So again, just make sure that as Necro, you kind of think about this very carefully to see whether it's actually going to be worth it to take the hives and trade away your skeletons for that. Now, as let's assume we did decide to actually take the hive, right? So here, the way to do this is to not actually convert everything into skeletons, right? You want to keep as many of the tankier units as possible, right? So for example, I have the Walking Dead here, and I have I have my skeletons, you know, obviously as many skeletons as we can, right? I got a Stronghold hero in my tavern, so I converted the goblins, but I kept the orcs and I kept the wolf raiders because they have more HP, so they can tank some hits, and I also kept the wights. So don't convert your zombies and don't convert other units that can actually tank more than the skeletons. So skeletons do the damage, but you want other units to tank, so you lose as few skeletons as possible. And again, you kind of follow the same logic. You want to tank with the rest of the units, so you don't really want to attack with them. You want to either def, you want to kind of block your skeletons from getting hit, and you probably do want to take retail just to make sure that you don't get weakness on your main stack. So I'm going to wait with the skeletons, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take retail from this stack over here, then I'm going to put the wights and the orcs like this. Walking Dead are going to hit, and then the skeletons are going to hit from here. The orcs are just going to def. Okay. Now I think we're gonna take retail again from this stack. Whoops, okay, then from this stack maybe. Nice. Okay, at this point, I probably will take the risk and just attack one of these stacks. Now, here's something that you may... Okay, so check this out. Something that the battle queue is useful for here. I actually usually play without the battle queue, but doing these fights, it can help you. Because here, like if I attack this stack, for example, if I don't take retail from it, if I attack it, and I actually don't one-shot it, if there's like 1 or 2 of them left, it actually moves first, right? So that stack could attack my skeletons and remove my retail, so then these guys actually attack me and they don't get hit back. So what the better move would actually be is to attack this stack, this 11 stack, so that when this stack moves first, if they decide to attack the skeletons, they get a lot of damage back from retaliation. So just make sure, you know, that, and that helps you conserve more skeletons, right? So that's what I am gonna do. Like, if I didn't know that this stack is going to move first, then I may have attacked it, and then I would have lost more skeletons, because obviously if it takes away retail on the skeletons, it can the other two will attack me and not get any damage back. So that means that I have to deal more damage, and, you know, they would get another chance to attack me next turn. So, okay, but we actually did one-shot it, so it's fine. So it would have been fine either way. Now we just def with these stacks. Okay, perfect. And now, again, I'm going to attack this stack. So just in case we don't one-shot them, just in case we low-roll the damage, I'm going to attack this stack. That way this stack attacks me, and it almost dies to retail as well. Okay. Well, we actually did pretty much the same as auto combat, I believe. Actually, no. We did lose fewer. Right, because, yeah, with Necro. So we saved, like, 3 skeletons. So it was almost the same as auto combat. But still, in some cases, you can actually do a little bit better than auto combat if you play this optimally. If you are not too confident in your fights, then you can just accept auto combat. So it should be fine as Necro and as Dungeon and as Fortress and as size 3 Hive. You know, you can usually just accept auto combat. But as you guys saw in the Dungeon fight, we saved a lot more troglodytes than auto combat did. So I would recommend to kind of, you know, try to do these fights optimally as well. Okay, now let's go for Fortress. At Fortress, basically same thing. So here I'm just bringing my nulls and I'm bringing meat. So let's go. All right, actually here, Dracon is actually not able to do a size 3. Interesting. It's probably because he got weakness on the nulls right away. So again, we're doing the same thing. We're taking retail, covering our nulls, and the rest of the units tank as much as possible. Okay, and here, let's see, I do believe I'm not even going to attack with, actually, well, let's see, would it be better to take, this is a little bit tricky right now, because I could take retail from one of the 12 stacks with the Lizardmen, but that means that they tank fewer hits. So I could just attack with the nulls. And make sure you don't attack this stack, right? So the stack that moves first, you want to leave that, you don't want to attack that, because if it decides to attack our nulls, it can at least take a lot of damage from retaliation. So let me attack this one. That's kind of a judgment call whether or not I want to take retaliation. In this case, I mean, there's certainly a case for it. Yeah, I think I will take retaliation so that at least we don't get weakness on the nulls right away. But see, we did lose 3 Lizardmen, so that means we are gonna have we're gonna tank like 1 or even 2 fewer hits. Okay. Well, in this case, we do have our weakness. So again, not going for this 12 stack. I'm gonna go for this one, so that this guy gets damaged from retaliation. Okay, and then again, I'll go for this 12 stack now. Okay, now let's just finish as many stacks as possible. Okay, so you see, auto combat was actually not able to do it. We were able to do it. We did lose most of our nulls. So, you know, again, you may kind of want to consider whether it's worth it or not. In this case, I think it is, because Fortress, Hives are really good for Fortress, because Fortress, well, for one, the Wyvern are really good with Beastmaster heroes, because they'll have a lot of defense, and a lot of Beastmaster heroes have armor, so you can start snowballing them really easy. And then it's really beneficial to have Wyvern as your power stack because you don't have the movement penalty, right? Swamp is a town where you get a lot of movement penalty. It's the worst, right? So, you know, on swamp terrain, you get 75% movement penalty. It's worse than snow. It's worse than sand, right? But if you have native swamp units, you don't have the penalty, right? So that's why going for conses if they're far away in the swamp, or going for experimental shops or pickets is not really that great as Fortress or as Cove. But if you have a lot of hives, even here, you know, we have a bunch of hives. They are a little bit off-road, but that's going to be fine because that's actually not going to, you know, we're not going to have the movement penalty. So in this case, I would say even losing most of our nulls here is worth it because we are going to be able to just snowball our Wyvern, and I'll even just demonstrate the fights really quick with just auto combat. Alright, so let's say we have 14. Let's say we get a little bit more meat from, like, the null huts here. And we go for the other 2 hives. I'll just accept that. Let's see, maybe get some more 1-stacks from a null hut somewhere. There we go. I can even try it without. So see, even like that, you know, obviously, you know, if I was actually doing the fights and if I was actually playing in a game type scenario, I would have done better. But now we have 20 Wyvern, even like this, even with bleeding some Wyverns. So this is, you know, how well you can snowball with Fortress. Yeah, and it's certainly 20 Wyvern is already, especially if we upgrade them to Wyvern Monarchs, they're going to be enough to do a lot of breaks. Maybe not the Behemoth's break, but a lot of breaks can be even done with about 20 Wyvern Monarchs. Okay, so now let's actually talk about some of the factions that are, that it's a little bit more difficult to do hives with. So, a lot of them I'm just gonna describe really quickly because there's, you know, not really a good way to do them in the early game. So, let's start with Tower, for example. So I think this is the last one that I'm actually gonna demonstrate. And the rest of them, I'm just going to basically really quickly describe to you. So, with Tower, the most viable way to actually take the hives... Let's see, where was the hive that I wanted to take? I forgot. Okay, I think it's this one. So the most viable way to take hives as Tower is to start with Josephine. It is viable. Some people do it, but it's not that common. Most people will start with either Solmir, maybe Thane, and, you know, you try to snowball Lamps or something like that. Again, Tower, hives are not that amazing for Tower because you're going to be dragging them through the snow. And for that reason, you're going to have a lot of movement penalty. It's not as bad as Swamp. It's 50% penalty, but it's still pretty significant, right? So unless they're close to the road, you know, you may not necessarily want to go for hives as Tower. And, you know, unless you can snowball something like genies or maybe get a couple of giants or an angel or, you know, some nagas or something like that, you're not going to be able to take them very easily because your power stack, and this kind of goes for Rampart and Castle as well, because your stack, your main damage dealing stacks are going to be ranged units, also for Inferno as well. So, you know, with Tower, you're normally relying on gremlins in the early game, right? And you know, you can take a lamp or two and you buff them and they're still your main damage dealing stat. With Castle, you're usually relying on marksmen. With Rampart, you're usually relying on Grand Elves, right? With Inferno, you're usually relying on Magogs. And obviously, if you go into the hives, the dragonflies outspeed you, and you can't actually shoot with your ranged units, and they will just attack you. You know, they'll attack your ranged units. Obviously, they'll block you from shooting. And when your tower gremlins are super weak, they're super weak to getting attacked. You know, they don't tank damage at all, and they're also they don't deal a lot of damage in melee. So for that reason, again, these factions, it's a little bit tricky to start taking hives with. And normally what you want to do, as for example castle and rampart, you want to get some other units before you actually go into hives. So you don't want to go for the hives on your day one army. You want to, let's say, take a portal of glory, you know, as castle, or maybe the cavalier dwelling as rampart, maybe a dragon dwelling, maybe unicorn dwellings, maybe get some dwarves or something like that, and then do the hive with that, and not actually bring your archers into the hive. Now with tower, so the most reliable way would be to start, if you do want to take a hive on your day one army, the most reliable way, like if you don't want to go for any naga dwellings or giant dwellings or anything like that, the most reliable way would be to start with Josephine. People do it, but again, as I said, it's not that common. However, one thing that I would mention is I would probably not do the hive on actually Josephine. I would probably choose a good might hero. So for example, I got Dace in the tavern here with offense, better attack, better defense. He's going to be a better candidate to do the hive. So we just build golems on day one. We buy everything, we bring everything with us, and this way we actually can do a size 3 hive. So you see, even auto combat was able to do it. Alright, and let's just try to do it a little bit better, because auto combat actually lost one golem. So I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to attack, we're going to take retaliation from this stack with our harpies, and then we're going to attack with the golems and with the gremlins. And the gargoyles are just going to be over here blocking. We shoot with the holders. Attack with the troglodytes and the golems. Okay. Now we can probably take retaliation from this stack. And again, you see, I'm making sure to take retaliation so that the gremlins and the golems suffer as little as possible. We are going to be losing our gremlins here, but this way at least they deal as much damage as possible before dying. Okay, so now let's see how to do this. Okay, so the 11 stack moves first, so we could, yeah, I'm probably going to try to deal as much damage as possible to this stack here. Because this stack is going to move first, and they're going to, from retaliation, they're going to take some damage. Or, what I could do is I could potentially focus down the 7 stack. Yeah, actually, but then the golems kind of waste damage if I do that. So, no, I'm going to focus on the 12 stack, I think. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. And now the gremlins can actually start taking out the smaller stacks, so let's do that. Okay, let's take out a 1 stack. Actually, yeah, let's take out a 1 stack. Let's do it like this, so that the golems can hit this stack. Okay, 1 stack. And there you guys have it. We were able to do this better than auto combat. We actually saved a few gremlins, so that's going to help us for some 1 stacks, and we didn't lose any golems as auto combat did. So that's how you can do it for tower. Again, not that common. I don't see too many people starting as Josephine, but you know, if that's your jam, if you like Wyvern, if you want to go for a Wyvern power stack, you can try. Again, It's not necessarily great because you are going to be trading away the gremlins for wyvern, and you're going to be dragging wyvern through the snow. So generally, a more optimal strategy for tower is to go for genies, and then with that try to snowball and start trying to take objects with genies. But I mean, if you can find the pathfind boots, then maybe the wyvern strategy could be viable, especially if you have a lot of hives. Okay, and the other towns, I'm just gonna briefly mention. So, Stronghold, it's not great taking hives with Stronghold early game. If you do, the most viable strategy is to start with Gretchen, but most people start with Tyrexor. But you can start with Gretchen and go for hives, but you will only be able to take a size 2 hive. You will not be able to take a size 3 hive as Stronghold, because the thing about Stronghold is their units, they deal a good amount of damage, but they don't tank. They don't have a lot of HP, and they don't have a lot of defense. So like Wolf Raiders, for example, they die really easily. Goblins, they also die very easily, and the heroes also don't get a lot of defense, and they usually don't have armor as Fortress heroes do. They usually have a lot of attack, and they have offense. So if you do want to go for hives, you can try starting with Gretchen. Some people do it. You don't necessarily, if you go for Tyrexor, you don't necessarily want to do that. With each of these, what I would say, so for all of them, like Stronghold, like not Fortress, Cove, Rampart, and Castle, and also Inferno, and to some extent Tower as well, what I would say is the most optimal way to take hives is to go for some dwellings first. So again, for Castle, you get a couple of Cavaliers or an Angel or two. For Rampart, some Unicorns, maybe Dragons, maybe Dwarves, and then you go into the hive with that. You don't take your ranged units, you just take, the meat that you gathered, like Dwarves for Rampart, or let's say Devils or Freets, or, Pit Lords or Pit Fiends as Inferno, as Stronghold Behemoths, most likely Behemoths, maybe some Ogres or something like that, and as... So I think and this Cove, Nyx, and maybe the Serpents. So basically, I'll just go through them one by one again. So as Stronghold, if you do want to go for hives, you can start with Gretchen, but you will only be able to take a size 2 hive, not a size 3. As Cove, you can go for Derek, because the pirates and the seamen are a little bit better, or not the pirates, sorry, yeah, the seamen and the crewmates, they are a little bit better at tanking than the Oceanids. However, most people start as Cassiopeia for Cove. So usually if you start with Cassiopeia, you will go for like a Nyx dwelling or something like that, and then with that you can start snowballing the hives, because hives are also going to be good for Cove because you're also in swamp, right? So you can carry those through the swamp without actually any movement penalty. With Derek, if you do start with Derek, you can also only do a size 2 hive. You cannot do a size 3. And then, as Castle, as I mentioned before, you don't really want to go for hives until you get some Angels or Cavaliers or something like that. With Rampart, you can go for them if you have a bunch of Centaurs or Dwarves. So you can go for hives with Centaurs and Dwarves. Usually, with your day 1 army, you can only take a size 2 hive. In the best case scenario, you certainly don't want to sacrifice your archers until you start snowballing something else in the hives. As Inferno, you can't really do the hives even if you start as Ignatus, because imps are just super weak and just not tanky at all. So again, you want to go for some kind of dwellings like Devils, like Pit Lords, like Efreet or something like that, and then you can start doing the hives with that. Okay, so I believe I've mentioned every town now. If I forgot something, let me know in the comments below, and you know, I can just answer if you guys have a question about that. But that's basically kind of the general guide on how you can take hives and how you can start snowballing them with each faction. I hope that you guys found this useful. I hope that, you know, this will help you in your game type scenario. Again, generally, hives are quite reliable for dungeon and for fortress. With the other towns, they're just a little bit more tricky. You usually want to start with something else and then go for the hives. With fortress and with dungeon, you can start with hives right away, right? And well, and with tower as well, you know, if you do what I just mentioned. But again, as I mentioned, it's a little bit tricky. With Necro, also you can go for a hive on day one, but you know, you just want to make that decision on whether or not you want to trade away your skeletons. Okay guys, so I'm gonna end the video there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to subscribe to this channel so you get notified when I release more videos. And feel free to follow my Twitch stream if you guys are interested in seeing more Heroes 3 content. The link will be in the video description below. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for more videos. Peace out.